Hey friends, it's that time again. Kenny Jahng here with the Church Tech Today podcast. I've got on the line with me a good friend, Josh Burnett. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kenny. Excited to be here.
Hey, so every time we sit down, we just nerd out on the latest stuff and innovation, and I love the entrepreneurial heart that you have. For those of you that don't know Josh, he is one of the founders of ChurchTech, an amazing tool that's taking and harnessing the power of AI to be able to do things for your ministry so that you have deeper impact, further reach, et cetera. Actually, maybe Josh, give us the 30-second elevator pitch for what ChurchTech is actually solving. What's the problem you're solving for the pastor and for the church?
Yeah, absolutely. So especially since COVID, pastors have gotten behind screens and we've stayed there, unfortunately, even now that we can be face to face with people. But there's so much expectation on us as pastors to execute on tasks that require us to be behind a screen. And AI can lift a lot of that burden for us and help us do things more quickly so that we can be with people more. We literally see our job as to help pastors make more and better disciples.
I love it. I love it. Why don't we zoom out a bit? Because I think the first piece is the perceptions that pastors have about AI seem to be informed in two buckets, at least as I'm crisscrossing the country and talking at different events and conferences. One is people who've actually used it. And then there are people that actually have not used it yet and then have come to form some judgment or perceived point of view of that. First of all, have you bumped into that dichotomy of the differences in opinions of pastors? And I want to talk about the people that have not actually used it yet. What would you say to those people that are they're reading articles, they're seeing videos, they're sensing conversations around them? What would you say to them about what is the power or the ultimate opportunity that AI provides churches and ministries today?
Yeah, I mean, I literally think that the church has the greatest use case for AI, period, end of story, of any market segment out there. If we're, it's weird to talk about the church as a market segment, but literally education is the only thing that even comes in second, like as a close second, because we've created so much content that it gives us the ability to take that content and then not just create more content, because I don't know about you, Kenny, I don't need more content in my life. I actually need it to be filtered for me so that I get the right things. And that actually is what we can do using AI. We can take the content we're already making as churches, we can make it more quickly, we can make it more effectively, but then we can also align it specifically to our church members. And that is like, you take a sermon. I mean, I preached hundreds of sermons, and the hardest part about preaching a sermon is knowing that there is such a diversity in this room. Even if I'm preaching to like a youth group or something, there's still a diverse level of experience in this room. And I need to find a way to help this scripture be applicable to everyone's life. And I'm only going to get to give one or two examples in any kind of real effective way. But with AI, I can literally deliver, here's potential next steps for everyone based on this sermon that's sitting in the room. So I think that's like a massive opportunity for us.
I think people would agree with that on principle, but I think the place that people get tripped up sometimes is, how do you maintain a faithful approach when you are actually leaning on AI to come up with all of those differentiated outcomes, the call to actions? Like, basically, how do we leverage that power of AI in your ministry ethically? Like, that to me, I think, is one of the core concerns that pastors have when they come to the table in terms of discussing, should we use it, should we not use it, et cetera. What do you say to that when someone says, like, I need to use this faithfully? How do I not let it loose and have no control over it?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely think that is true. And for the average pastor, I don't know how this sounds on people's ears, but honestly, like this is my answer. For the average pastor, you need to find a trusted partner in that. And that's not me trying to plug church.tech or anything. There are other AI platforms out there for the church, and you've got to find a trusted partner, and you've got to understand how they're using AI, how they're building their infrastructure, at least to some degree, so that you're aware of, hey, this is how this platform actually works and what it's doing to produce these next steps. And then you need to use it. You've got to use it yourself to actually, it's the old Andy Stanley quote of like, we don't read things because we believe them. We read them to find out if we're going to believe. You need to use AI to figure out what your actual opinion is. And I've heard a lot of pastors say things like, oh, AI is the devil. And I'm like, well, if you have a smartphone, that sounds dumb, because you're using AI every day on your smartphone. You just don't know it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would say, like, if you're going to go down that line, let's then, call the bluff, I guess, in a way, and say, why don't you be consistent then with your entire life, right? Like, let's not use Google autocomplete, and let's not use all these other instances, the Amazon shopping recommendation engine or the Netflix queue on your TV, or right. And so then let's strip all technology out from underneath you. Okay, so how would you guide your church through all these questions, though, that come up when you're trying to figure it out? Most pastors don't have a large IT team, information technology department. They're probably the ones that are dipping their toes in the water first. I mean, there might be some other people. What do you do when you're in that position of a normal sized church out there, to be able to figure out the even just what questions to ask, but then the answers to those questions?
Yeah. Well, I mean, quite frankly, I would say listen to Kenny Jahng, because that's not even me trying to kiss up to you, Kenny. It's just the truth. Like, Kenny's been talking about this for a long time now, and it really is legitimately the truth. Like, you have a ton of resources around this of what are the questions you actually should ask. Carrie Newhoff's another really great resource on that front. There's a really fun little trick that if you're evaluating a platform, that I would encourage you to do, and it's to use AI to evaluate AI. That you can do this for anything, though. Just go to ChatGPT, use the free version, and then grab the terms of service for ChatGPT, copy paste them, and then just type in, what are the risks for my church? If I'm a pastor and I'm using this platform, what are the risks presented to my church members, to myself, using this? And it'll literally evaluate its own terms of service and tell you, hey, here are the risks involved in this. And that's a really good way for you to start to understand, like, oh, this is what this is actually going to do with anything I put into it. That's a great place to start.
I want to fast forward a little bit in the history, the timeline of innovation, right? So because we're sitting here now at a point where Sam Altman, the creator of ChatGPT, head of OpenAI, has announced his prediction that we're going to reach the milestone in this innovation front called AGI, artificial general intelligence. Right? That's when the machine becomes more intelligent and capable than humans. Elon Musk announced that his Optimus AI robots, that he envisions a future, I think by 2025 or 2030, that every home will have an AI companion robot with us. And at some point, there's going to be more AI humanoid things than there are humans on this planet. And we're going to have relationships, right? You're seeing news where people, I think a woman actually married their AI avatar, or, unfortunate events of mental health where a young boy committed suicide because of some conflict with his AI friend, his AI chatbot. So here's one question I think that also comes up, and this is why I want to talk to you, because I think someone like you who's in it daily, programmatically, understands what are the real limitations are, or what is the real fundamental nature is. Can AI have a soul? What about the consciousness of AI? Because it can. Is it emulate or simulate the empathy of a human being in its responses? When you talk to ChatGPT, sometimes it's snarky and has a personality. Where do you go with that? I understand now we don't have that, but do you see a future where AI is going to be able to have something that rivals the human consciousness?
Yeah, I think this is such an interesting conversation. And to be honest with you, I'll just give you my personal opinion on it and just be like really, really blunt of like, I just don't think that God has given us the capacity to generate another type of life form that has like, a soul and other than humans. I mean, like obviously like we can make more humans, but I don't think we can make some new form of like,
Life. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. However, I will willingly put the caveat forward on that I think AI will evolve in the next few years to a point where it will be virtually indistinguishable from that. You know, the interesting thing about like, we're talking about like large language models and their ability to, be artificially intelligent, imitate intelligence, is that it is something that's derivative of human intelligence. It's not something that is actual intelligence. And so, we want to talk about the I, but we forget about the A, and the A is really the pertinent part of this. And like AGI is like an interesting concept because I think we'll make it look and feel very, very human. But this is where the church has really got to be engaged in this conversation because, I mean, I don't think that humans should be marrying robots, especially when like we've seen the effect of social media on us. When we get into silos, we don't do nice things to one another. And like, that's the negative potential of AI, that we end up in these silos and we just like create things that either tell us what we want to hear or tell us what we don't want to hear. And we, become better at hating rather than loving. And that's where the church needs to come in and say, like, no, we can design systems using AI that point humans back to relationship with one another and with God, and really lead the way in the ethics conversation of how AI is actually used in the world today. And I think that's going to be really important. Also, I do hope that the Optimus robots learn to fold laundry and become very cheap.
Actually, I am on my way to the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas again, where they unveil all the latest techno gadgets. And as a preview, I saw a video of a robot that folds laundry. It's absolutely incredible. I think we need to invest in that company, whatever that is.
Yeah. For real. I think I saw that same one. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's happening.
Yes. It irons and folds your clothes. I mean, like, wow, that's amazing. Okay. I totally believe you're right in that regard. The questions of free will, there's so many theological questions that come up. And this is why I believe the church needs to articulate an actual theology of AI. And we need to come together to figure out how to do that. And at Church Tech Today, we are starting to assemble some voices to inform that discussion, because I don't think there's one answer to it. It's just like all these other systematic theology topics that we have across the church. There will be many nuanced interpretations of it. And we're going to try to contribute our own voice to it. But going back to the ethics of it, what else can you advise in terms of what does a pastor actually need to consider? What, on a practical basis, if they're going to go back and assemble their leadership team and have this discussion and say, hey, we need to consider this 1, 2, 3, like, what are the considerations that float to the top in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's pretty much 4 things. Like, one, you need to be aware of what AI is. You've got to understand what it actually is. AI is a blanket term. Most of what we're talking about when we say AI today is large language models. And, most pastors are using this, and we're using this blanket term of AI. And so we sound silly when we're holding the phone and we're like, well, AI is, bad or whatever. It's like, okay, we got to understand what it is, what it can do. And then we've got to use it a little bit to really even be able to enter into the conversation on this front. No matter what your opinion ends up being, it can't be informed by ignorance. It's got to be an informed opinion. And then we've got to be transparent. Kenny, you were one of the first voices that I'm aware of that was saying, like, churches need an AI policy, like right out of the gate. Like, churches need an AI policy. And I completely agree with you on that. It is a great way for us to be transparent with our churches about how we're using AI as a staff team and that type of thing. And like, frankly, people want to know. They want to know if ChatGPT is writing your sermons, your children's ministry lessons. Like, they want to know what you're doing with AI. And we need to be open about that. Hey, this is what we use it for. This is what we will not use it for. And then we've got to, pastors need to understand the privacy and security concerns that AI presents. Like, I've talked to several pastors who have taken, what I would label sensitive information from their church and put it into like the free version of ChatGPT, which is not a thing you should be doing. And that comes back to like use AI to determine how the data is going to be used if you put it in there. That little hack I talked about earlier. And then finally, we need to design those systems that actually point people back to relationship with one another and with God, and like use AI to do that. And so if we're using AI to create like small group curriculum, that type of thing, like do it in a way that is designed to be discussed with another human being. If we're using AI to like, help people think about the next steps that they need to take, do that in a way that says share this with someone and have a conversation with them. Those are kind of the four things that, for me at least, from like a practical application of this opportunity for the church, we've got to understand what it is. We've got to be transparent so that we can actually have a voice in the conversation culturally. And then we've got to really be aware of like, hey, this is a system we should use, this is a system we should not, and know how to actually get to that conclusion, and then make systems that point people back toward one another in Jesus. So
Yeah, I love it. Now, what's interesting is that you've decided to build a tool in ChurchTech that helps church leaders apply AI in a way that I think is almost like sidestepping the landmine of those controversial questions, right? Because your tool pretty much conceptually takes your sermon, which is already written and already preached, and then does stuff with it afterwards, versus the question that everyone, or the objection that everyone has if you are against AI, is like, it should never write your sermon for you. It should. And there's all these questions about that arise that I think that's a red herring question. And we, in an earlier episode on a panel, we actually went down there, and I started to get some feedback from a lot of these opponents. But your tool takes a sermon and creates devotionals and sermon guides and sermon clips, discussion questions, right? And so I think that's the safe zone. Where would be 1, 2, or 3 areas that you think AI really should not be considered, or definitely is not the place that you should go to consider using it first?
all right, so I'll give you an opinion. I'm super interested in what I've actually been wanting to ask you this, and it's funny that I'm just now doing it while we're actually recording. But I don't think that we should have AI bots on like church websites that answer theological or like even like ecclesiological questions, honestly. Because I think that the danger of that is that if I have a choice between like having a human interaction that could hurt me or cause me to feel other than, and a conversation with a bot, I'm going to choose that bot 100% of the time. And I think it's just a way that we're like making it easy for people to not engage in a way that truly has the opportunity for a person with the Holy Spirit inside of them to demonstrate love, even if they have a differing theological view than the person who's asking the question, what they're hoping they're going to say or whatever. Like there's nuance involved in like, because the very first question that is asked of every one of those bots, and we've made several of them, not for churches, but we've made them as experiments, and like I've sent them out to people and said, ask questions. Every single question that was the first one that was asked is always like, where's this church stand on LGBTQ AI like issues? And I'm like, if you just give a derivative answer of some sermon that is like, here's the summarization of this, I don't think that you can do grace and truth through a bot. Anyhow, what do you think? Tell me I'm wrong. I'm totally happy.
That's a very interesting question, because we have started to see some tools out there, church specific, trying to solve that situation. I would say you're right in the cautiousness of that. I think you would try to figure out how to deploy a chatbot on a widget on a church's website to ask and be limited to questions that are informational first, right? Customer service type of things. Like, hey, do you have a children's program at the 11 o'clock service versus the 9 a.m. service? What type of dress code is there at the service? Am I able to stay with my child in the Sunday school, or do parents have to exit the room? That kind of, right? Like all those types of things I think is probably the best. And I know Brian Buford, who's a pastor at Grace Church in Boston, he demonstrated for us recently in a workshop where they were using Bot 9 to do that kind of thing. But then questions that were off limits were swept away and referred to, I think that they're using Intercom as their chat widget on the basically it's a customer service chat service. And so then that's basically escalated to a human person to respond to. I don't know. In terms of the theological, I totally see what you're saying, that you want to actually, I guess from an entrepreneurial standpoint, we want to solve typically not for the outliers, but for the mass use cases. But in ministry and care situations, I think there's something of value. What you're saying is that you have to then flip the script there and make sure that you accommodate the fringe cases versus the main middle, and what would happen there. And I think it's a very interesting question to deploy in terms of that decision tree of what is the content, topics, and the breadth of the conversations that you would employ. I don't know. What about when we do hit AGI in the next couple of years, where it can fully ingest? I don't know, if a pastor has preached 20 years worth of sermons, 20 times 50 sermons, and then follow, all the other pastors that they like. So you're literally having hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sermons, Bible study curriculum. I know that Glue is producing RAG tools that you can actually then click off and look at trusted sources. At that point, I'm wondering if you can you train the chatbot to have those boundaries? I don't know. I guess that would be my caveat, I guess, is to see, can you have that caveat, employed?
Yeah. I mean, dude, I would be totally fine with a bot that's like, here's when the services are. Yeah. And even then it's like, can I schedule a conversation with one of our pastors? Yes. That I think is a brilliant use of awesome, absolutely awesome. But it's going to be really interesting to see where things evolve on that front.
It's just, and I think this is what you are trying to present and suggest, is that we as church leaders need to consider these ethical questions, because there's no right or wrong answer out there. There's no published reference that you can just say to your teams like, oh, just go look up the answer here and we'll just follow that. Right? The context of every ministry is very different. And these questions of ethics is really important for our own ministry. But I think what we opened up with is the large opportunity is our influence to the outsiders. And I want to end there. It's like one of the things that you said was so important that I think we forget about as church leaders, that, hey, just from that one little angle that you talked about, we are the average church is a content production machine. It's a 7-day production cycle. And dealing with questions of ethics around content and teaching and relationships is something that we, the church with a capital C, should be seen as an authority, right?
Absolutely.
How would you go about doing that in terms of influencing your local community, the public, et cetera, for the average pastor? What does that mean? What do they need to do in terms of questions that they need to consider and answer, position statements with their own congregation? Do you have any suggestions? Or is it a lunch and learn for the business people in their church? What would you suggest as one tiny step that church leaders can start to claim and wield their influence in this area?
Yeah, I mean, I really do think it sounds redundant, but it's like starting to actually use AI with your content is really the first step of that. If you're not doing that, then you can't enter into the conversation. I don't know. I think some of the questions that I do think lunch and learns are a great idea for the church to sort of lead the way of hey, are you using this? Because this can actually really help you in your sales job, in your, customer success job, in your, entrepreneurship with your new business that you're starting for some service that you're providing, whatever it is. And I think the church has the opportunity to do that. I also think that there's just such a great opportunity, the whole old adage of like innovation always precedes, like ethics always follows innovation or whatever. Like the ethics conversation is going to come later. And like with social media, right? You've got a few huge companies that have like major objectives in terms of like financial objectives driving how their system actually operates. AI is not like that. It's decentralized. Like you can actually use it and as, for your own church in a way that like puts you in the center of the conversation for how other people are using it, and for the church to start, because we came last in the social media world, right? Like we're just starting to run ads. Like churches are like actually starting to like use it to achieve their own kingdom ends, or God's kingdom ends, and we can lead the way with AI. We really can. And so I think that's like just using it and then starting to have conversations with the other people in your church about that, and truly thinking deeply about like, what is the right way for this to be used? So
I love it. As we close this out, Josh, I'm going to enter into a lightning round of fun questions. And so don't think too hard, quick answers, and we'll go through a couple of them as we close out the show. So the first one is, what is one recent way that you've used AI tools or chatbots that are non-work related? Something that is, personal or around the house, or something for trivial. What's a non-work related way that you've used AI recently?
Man, I'll tell you my favorite one, and it's not even me. It was my wife, who's brilliant. Our refrigerator broke. I watched a whole bunch of YouTube videos, tried 2 different fixes that cost about $250 to fix it. Didn't work. And I was in the car on my way to Home Depot to buy a new refrigerator. My wife calls me and she's like, "Hey, I just I found the manual online, downloaded it into ChatGPT, asked it like told it what was wrong, and it said, 'Oh, try these 3 things.' Well, I had tried the first 2 and I hadn't tried the third one. The third one was pushing a button on the back of the refrigerator, and it fixed it." Damn, I love it. The next one.
ChatGPT's your friend. Recently, I opened up my refrigerator, took a picture of the fridge, uploaded to ChatGPT, and asked it, "What can I make?" And it gave me, I think, 13 different options for recipes.
I think that's brilliant. I love that.
Fun stuff. Okay, next question is: we are all learning about AI for the first time together, right? We're all together. Undoubtedly, you're trying new AI tools left and right. What's the latest trial account? What's the latest AI tool that you've tried out there that that you've actually set up a trial and started to use?
Yeah, yesterday I tried one called Render Forest that a friend told me about, and it will make like motion graphic videos with sound, with like voiceover stuff based on it'll write the script too, but if you give it a script, it even works better. It's phenomenal. That's really cool. Suno is by far my favorite pastime. Like it is just right now, it's just like, I'll make a song about anything.
Yes. Suno AI, you just put in a text prompt, ask it what type of song, about what, and then it creates, I think, commercially ready music. I think if we had a hackathon, Josh, it would be, could we create an album and launch it on Spotify and make it commercially successful over this next year? I think that would be the next project for me. Okay, next question is, what's one way that you think pastors are missing out on in terms of using AI? What's like a use case? Everyone knows, let's make a song, novelty stuff. Let's make an image. What's one way you think AI can be used in ministry that ministry leaders are just missing out on right now today?
Yeah, I'll give you one that maybe sounds controversial. I don't know. Like it's in evaluating and improving your sermon before you preach it. So taking record yourself preaching, get the manuscript, and then ask it, where does this not make sense? And like, where does it not flow? We have like a prompt in our platform that's like called Logic and Flow, and it will tell you where the breakdowns in logic and the breakdown in flow for people to keep up with you. I think that's a huge one.
Yes. And you can even ask it what objections or questions arise, and then ask it to address those questions, right? So that's that feedback mechanism. I love that. Okay. And the last one is this topic of AGI. I know it's defined in many different ways. We have experts that have said it's going to be here in 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, and now, as Sam Altman has said, the next year or two we will have it. What year? We're going to peg you to a year. What year do you think we will meet the singularity, the point where machines become smarter than us, that they can actually learn by themselves, they can make decisions on their own, they don't need us? What year do you think AGI will happen?
Man, all right. It's almost 2025. I'm going to go June 27th, 2027.
Okay.
I have no idea why. That is literally, I think we're probably 3 years away from it, like
really
feeling very, very, very human. I don't know if it's AGI or not. But.
Awesome. And the last question is, as we get out of here, how can people learn more about what you're doing? How do they follow you? How do they connect with you if they found something interesting in our conversation today? How do they reach out and connect with Josh Burnett?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website's church.tech, church period TECH. And then I'm on Facebook and Instagram as at Josh Burnett, BURNETT. And I don't really play around on Twitter, but I am on there, or X, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn as well, at Josh Burnett. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Josh, for hanging out with us today. And for our listeners who have been listening in, we would love to hear your feedback and also ask what ethical questions you have in your mind that we might be able to help address. We'd love to have Josh back here and maybe do some chit chat from questions and comments from you all here that are listening in. The other thing is, do us a favor and share this with another leader. One of the things I used to always say is, you're not called to become the AI expert in your spheres of influence, but I believe you are called to be the conversation starter. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to be the expert, but the convening aspect of your leadership will do tremendous things for your own community. So please start to have those conversations locally. Use any of our episodes or the articles on ChurchTechToday.com as those conversation starters. And we'll check you out here on the next episode of the Church Tech Today podcast.